My name is Brooke. I'm 27 years old, and I'm standing in the snow outside my childhood home on Christmas Eve with everything I own scattered across the frozen lawn. My father just threw my belongings out the second-story window while shouting words that cut deeper than the winter wind. "You're no daughter of mine." I clutch a garbage bag filled with whatever clothes I could salvage, tears freezing on my cheeks when I notice something impossible. A barefoot man in torn jeans walking toward me through the snow. Before we continue this incredible story, I'd love to know where you're watching from today. Are you spending the holidays with family, or are you, like I was, feeling alone? Please hit that like button if you've ever felt rejected by those who should love you most, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories of triumph over adversity. Trust me, what happens next will restore your faith in humanity and show you that sometimes angels appear in the most unexpected forms. Let me back up and explain how I ended up shivering in the snow on what should have been a night of celebration. My parents, Richard and Diana Morrison, were everything you'd expect from old money aristocracy. My father ran a prestigious investment firm downtown, and my mother spent her days at charity lunches and country club events. They lived in a sprawling colonial mansion in the most exclusive neighborhood, where appearances mattered more than authenticity. Growing up in that house felt like living in a museum where I was constantly told not to touch anything, including my own life. My younger sister Madison, now 24, had always been the golden child. She had the right friends, dated the right boys, and never questioned the path our parents laid out for her. She'd recently gotten engaged to Harrison Blackwell III, heir to a pharmaceutical fortune, and our parents couldn't have been more thrilled. Me? I was the disappointment. Instead of pursuing law or medicine like they wanted, I became a social worker. I spent my days helping homeless families find shelter, connecting them with resources, advocating for children caught in the system. To my parents, this wasn't a noble calling, it was an embarrassment. "Why waste your education on people who'll never amount to anything?" my father would ask during our increasingly rare family dinners. The Christmas Eve party was an annual tradition, a chance for my parents to showcase their success to their equally wealthy friends. The house gleamed with professional decorations, caterers circulated with champagne and caviar, and everyone wore designer clothes that cost more than my monthly rent. I'd almost skipped it this year, but my mother had called, insisting I attend. "It's Madison's first Christmas as an engaged woman," she'd said, as if that somehow made it mandatory. I arrived in my best dress, which still looked cheap compared to everyone else's couture. Madison swept over to me immediately, her 4-carat diamond catching the light from the chandelier. "Brooke, I'm so glad you could tear yourself away from the homeless shelter," she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "Mom was worried you'd show up smelling like poverty." The party progressed with the usual small talk and subtle insults disguised as concern. "Still doing your little charity work?" asked Mrs. Pemberton, one of my mother's friends. "Such a shame, with your potential." I gritted my teeth and smiled, counting the minutes until I could escape. Then Madison clinked her champagne glass, gathering everyone's attention. "Harrison and I have an announcement," she said, glowing with satisfaction. "We're expecting. The future heir to the Blackwell fortune will arrive next summer." The room erupted in congratulations. My parents looked ready to burst with pride. My mother actually cried, something I'd never seen her do, not even at her own mother's funeral. "This is the best Christmas gift ever," my father declared, raising his glass. "To the next generation of Morrison Blackwells." As everyone toasted, I felt my phone vibrate. Marcus had texted, asking if I'd told them yet. My stomach churned. I'd been dating Marcus for 6 months, and he was everything my parents would hate. He was kind, hardworking, and genuine, but he'd also spent 3 years homeless before turning his life around. He now worked as a counselor at the shelter where we'd met, helping others escape the streets like he had. "Brooke, you look pale," my mother observed, her hawk eyes missing nothing. "Is something wrong?" Maybe it was the champagne, or maybe I was just tired of hiding, but I heard myself saying, "Actually, I have news too. I'm seeing someone." The room fell silent. All eyes turned to me. My father set down his glass with a sharp clink. "Oh, And who might this be? Someone from a good family, I hope. His name is Marcus, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. He's wonderful. He works at the shelter with me. The shelter? My mother's voice rose an octave. You mean he's staff? Administration. He's a counselor. He helps people transition off the streets because he's been there himself. He understands what they're going through. The silence that followed was deafening. Madison's eyes lit up with malicious glee. My father's face turned an alarming shade of purple. Are you telling me, he said slowly, each word dropping like ice, that you're dating a homeless man? A formerly homeless man, I corrected. He's been stably housed for years. He has a job, an apartment. Get out. My father's voice was deadly quiet. Richard, my mother started, but he held up a hand. No, Diana. I've tolerated her bleeding heart phase long enough. Dating vagrants? Bringing shame to our family name? Get out of my house. The party guests stood frozen, champagne glasses still raised in their forgotten toast. Uncle Theodore, my father's brother, had his phone out, and I realized with horror that he was recording everything. Daddy, please, I tried, but he was already storming upstairs. I heard crashes from above, then my bedroom window flew open. Richard, what are you doing? My mother called, but we all knew. My clothes came flying out first, then my books, my pictures, everything I'd left in my childhood room. Madison leaned close to me, her whisper vicious. I always knew you'd end up like the trash you work with. At least now you'll fit right in. My mother stood there, her face a mask of cold disappointment. You've made your choice, Brooke. You've chosen them over us. Your father's right. You're no daughter of ours. I stood there, shaking as my possessions rained down on the snowy lawn. Photo albums split open, spilling memories across the ground. The ceramic jewelry box my grandmother had given me shattered on the driveway. Not one person at that party said a word in my defense. They all just watched, some with pity, others with satisfaction, as Richard and Diana Morrison formally expelled their eldest daughter from their lives. Take what you can carry and leave, my father said from the doorway. If I see you on this property again, I'll have you arrested for trespassing. And so I found myself outside, scrambling to gather what I could into garbage bags, my party dress soaked through with snow, my entire world collapsed around me. That's when I saw him, a man walking barefoot through the snow, approaching me with the strangest expression of understanding on his face. The barefoot man drew closer, and I could see him more clearly in the glow from my parents' Christmas lights. He looked to be in his early 30s, wearing expensive-looking jeans and a simple t-shirt despite the freezing temperature. His feet left perfect prints in the fresh snow, and he seemed completely unbothered by the cold. Need some help? He asked, his voice gentle but confident. Without waiting for an answer, he bent down and started collecting my scattered belongings. Looks like you're having a rough night. I stood there, stunned, watching this stranger carefully pick up my broken picture frames and waterlogged books. Your feet, I managed to say. You're not wearing shoes. He smiled, a genuine expression that reached his eyes. I know. I find it keeps me grounded, literally and figuratively. I'm James, by the way. Brooke, I replied automatically, then felt fresh tears threatening. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be rude, but who are you? Why are you here? I was walking by and saw let's call it a domestic disturbance. Quite the show your family put on. He gestured toward the house where party guests were pressed against the windows, watching us. I have a particular distaste for parents who throw their children away like garbage. Something in his tone made me look at him more closely. Despite his casual appearance, there was an intensity to him, a presence that seemed at odds with his bare feet and torn jeans. Do you live around here? In a manner of speaking. He held up a sodden teddy bear I'd had since childhood. Is this salvageable? Nothing salvageable, I said, the weight of what had happened crushing down on me. I have nowhere to go. My bank accounts are linked to theirs, my car is in their name, The tears came then, hot and unstoppable. Hey, James said softly, look at me. When I did, his dark eyes were full of understanding. I know this feels like the end of everything, but sometimes being thrown away is the first step to finding where you really belong. Come on, let's get what we can and get you somewhere warm. I can't impose, I started, but he waved me off. You're not imposing. I have a friend's house nearby where you can stay tonight. Tomorrow, we'll figure out next steps. But right now you need warmth, food, and safety. Let me help. Maybe it was shock or desperation, or just the fact that this stranger had shown me more kindness in 5 minutes than my family had in years, but I nodded. We gathered what we could into several garbage bags, then he led me away from my childhood home. We walked for about 10 minutes, me struggling with the bags while he moved easily despite his bare feet. The neighborhood gradually shifted from merely wealthy to breathtakingly exclusive. We stopped at a gate that looked like it belonged to an embassy. Your friend lives here? I asked as he punched in a code. Something like that. The gates swung open to reveal a driveway that seemed to go on forever, lined with lights that made it look like a runway. At the end sat a house, no, a mansion that made my parents' home look like a cottage. James, I said slowly, who exactly is your friend? He turned to me with that same gentle smile. Me. The friend is me. I should probably properly introduce myself. James Morrison, though you might know me better as the founder of Moritech Solutions. I nearly dropped the bags. James Morrison. The James Morrison. Tech billionaire, one of the youngest self-made billionaires in the country, famous for his eccentric habits and mysterious past. You're barefoot? Yeah, I get that a lot. He took some of the bags from me. Come on, you're turning blue. The inside of the house was even more incredible than the outside, all soaring ceilings and modern art, but somehow it felt warm and lived in rather than cold and perfect like my parents' house. James led me to a kitchen that could have serviced a restaurant. Sit, he said, pointing to a stool at the marble island. Hot chocolate or something stronger? Why are you doing this? I asked instead of answering. You don't know me. I could be anyone. You're right, I don't know you. But I know what it's like to have nowhere to go on a cold night. I know what it's like to be told you're worthless by people who should protect you. He turned on the kettle, his movements practiced and calm. And I know that sometimes, one person reaching out a hand can change everything. The barefoot thing, I said, needing to understand. The articles about you never explain it properly. James poured hot water over cocoa powder, his expression thoughtful. I spent 3 years living on the streets. Started when I was 16 and my stepfather decided I was one mouth too many to feed. No shoes for most of that time. When I finally made it out, made my fortune, I kept waiting for someone to pull the rug out from under me again. The bare feet remind me that I survived without anything, so I can survive losing everything again. Plus, he grinned, it really unsettles the board members during meetings. Despite everything, I found myself almost smiling. From homeless to billionaire. That's quite a journey. It wasn't a straight line. Lots of setbacks, lots of people who tried to keep me down. But also people who helped, who saw potential when I couldn't see it myself. He handed me the mug. Which brings us to you. Social worker, right? I heard you telling them at the party. I'm probably losing my job after tonight. My parents will make sure of it. Maybe. Or maybe this is the push you needed to do something bigger. He studied me over his own mug. But first things first. You need somewhere to stay. I have a guest house on the property. 3 bedrooms, fully furnished, completely separate from the main house. It's yours for as long as you need it. I can't accept that. It's too much. It's an empty house sitting unused. You'd be doing me a favor by making it look lived in. Plus, I have a feeling your parents aren't going to make the next few weeks easy for you. You'll need a stable base to fight from. The word fight caught my attention. What do you mean? I mean that parents who would throw their child out on Christmas Eve for dating someone they deem beneath them aren't going to just let you walk away. They'll want to punish you, make an example of you. Trust me on this. His expression darkened. The guest house has excellent security. You'll be safe there. I wanted to argue more, but exhaustion was setting in. The adrenaline from the confrontation was fading, leaving me shaky and drained. Just for tonight, I said finally. We'll see, James said with a knowing look. Finish your cocoa. I'll show you to the guest house. As I sat in that beautiful kitchen, Warm mug between my hands, safe for the moment thanks to a barefoot stranger's kindness. My phone began buzzing incessantly. The screen lit up with notification after notification. With trembling fingers, I opened Facebook to see my mother's post. It is with heavy hearts that we announce our daughter Brooke has chosen to leave our family to pursue a lifestyle incompatible with our values. We ask for privacy during this difficult time. The comments were already pouring in, full of sympathy for my parents and speculation about what I'd done. Then came Madison's post, somehow even worse. Some people are born into privilege and throw it away for attention. Pray for my sister, who's chosen homelessness over home. Don't look at that, James said gently, taking my phone and turning it face down. Tomorrow we'll deal with their lies. Tonight you rest. But I could already feel it starting, the campaign to destroy me. My parents had thrown me out, but that wasn't going to be enough for them. They were going to make sure I suffered for the embarrassment I'd caused them. Little did I know, as James led me through his magnificent gardens to the guest house, that this was only the beginning of their assault on my life. I woke the next morning in the guest house's master bedroom, disoriented by the softness of the sheets and the gentle light filtering through floor-to-ceiling windows. For a moment, I forgot where I was, then reality crashed back. My phone, charging on the nightstand, was practically vibrating itself off the surface with notifications. With shaking hands, I scrolled through the damage. My parents had been busy. Their social media posts had gone viral in our social circle, and the story they'd crafted was devastating. According to them, I'd shown up drunk to the party, made a scene, and when they'd tried to calm me down, I'd become violent. Madison had posted a video, carefully edited to show me gesturing animatedly while talking about Marcus, but with the audio replaced to make it look like I was yelling incoherently. But the social media assault was just the beginning. I had 17 missed calls from my boss at the shelter, and her voicemail made my blood run cold. "Brooke, I need you to call me immediately. Your parents contacted the board of directors with some very serious allegations. You're suspended pending an investigation." "I'm so sorry." My hands trembled as I checked my banking app. The joint savings account I'd foolishly kept with my parents, containing my entire down payment fund for a future home, showed a balance of $0. $12,000 gone. A text from my father read simply, "Considerate payment for 27 years of disappointment." A knock at the door made me jump. James stood there, looking concerned but now wearing shoes, expensive leather loafers. "I thought you might need breakfast," he said, holding a tray. "And possibly a lawyer." "How did you know?" "Your parents' campaign is already making waves. Richard Morrison isn't exactly subtle when he goes after someone." He set the tray down and pulled out his phone. "I took the liberty of having my team do some research last night. Your father is not as untouchable as he thinks." "I can't afford your team," I said miserably. "Good thing I'm not asking you to pay. Consider it an investment in justice." His eyes hardened. "I really hate bullies, especially ones who target their own children." As I picked at the breakfast, James's phone rang. He answered, his expression growing darker with each word. "I see." "No, document everything." "Yes, all of it." He hung up and turned to me. "They've filed a police report claiming you stole valuable jewelry before leaving. They're also claiming the car you've been driving is stolen property." "It's in their name, but I've been paying for it," I protested. "Doesn't matter legally." "Where is it now?" "Parked at my apartment complex." "Not anymore. It's been reported and towed." He showed me a photo on his phone of my car being loaded onto a police tow truck. "They're moving fast." The hits kept coming. By noon, my health insurance had been canceled, effective immediately. I received a formal letter from my apartment complex stating that my parents, as my emergency contacts and lease guarantors, had informed them I was vacating immediately. I had 72 hours to remove my belongings. "They can't do this," I said, pacing the guest house living room. "This is my life they're destroying. They can and they will, unless we fight back." James pulled out a laptop. "But first, we need to protect you. My head of security is coming by to upgrade the guest house system. Your parents have already tried to find out where you are." "How do you know all this?" Because your Uncle Theodore called my office this morning, pretending to be concerned about you, fishing for information. Apparently, he told them he saw you leaving with someone last night. The betrayal stung. Uncle Theodore had always been kind to me, or so I'd thought. He was recording everything at the party, which might actually work in our favor if we can get that footage. James typed rapidly. But right now, we need to focus on stabilizing your situation. Can you access your work files remotely? Yes, why? Because I'm betting your parents' complaint to your employer is full of lies. We need to document your actual work history before they try to alter the narrative further. We spent the next hours in crisis mode. James's lawyer, a sharp woman named Grace Chin, arrived and immediately began filing injunctions. His security team swept the guest house and installed additional cameras. I backed up every work file, every commendation, every positive review I'd ever received. Then Marcus called. Brooke, what's going on? Your sister just showed up at the shelter with 2 men. They said they were private investigators, that you're dangerous, that I need to stay away from you for my own safety. My heart sank. Marcus, I'm so sorry. My parents found out about us and they offered me money, he said quietly. $10,000 to sign something saying you were unstable, that you'd talked about hurting your family. Brooke, what kind of people are they? Did you sign it? Of course not. But Brooke, they knew things. About my past, about my record from when I was on the streets. They said they'd make sure I lost my job, that I'd never work in social services again. Marcus, I'm so sorry. This is all my fault. No, he said firmly. This is their fault. But Brooke, I think we need to take a break. Just until this blows over. I can't risk my job, my sobriety. I've worked too hard to get where I am. I understood, but it still felt like another knife in my heart. I understand, I whispered. I'm sorry, he said, and hung up. James, who'd been politely pretending not to listen, put a hand on my shoulder. They're isolating you. Classic abuse tactic. Make you feel alone so you'll come crawling back. It's working, I admitted. Maybe I should just apologize, try to make peace. Is that really what you want? To go back to people who would do this to you? Before I could answer, Grace Chin burst in. We've got bigger problems. They've escalated. Your father just filed for a protective order, claiming you've been stalking and harassing them. There's a hearing scheduled for next week, and if they win, you'll be legally barred from coming within 500 feet of them or any family property. But I haven't done anything. I haven't contacted them at all. They've submitted evidence. Text messages, emails, all threatening. Obviously fabricated, but sophisticated forgeries. James's expression was grim. They're not just trying to punish you. They're trying to destroy you completely. The question is, are you ready to fight back? I thought about Marcus, forced to choose between me and his stability. I thought about my job, my savings, my life's work being stripped away piece by piece. I thought about my parents, sitting in their mansion, orchestrating my destruction over brandy and spite. Yes, I said, surprising myself with the firmness in my voice. I'm ready to fight back. Good, James said with a sharp smile. Because I've been doing some digging of my own and your parents have more skeletons in their closets than a cemetery. Grace, how do you feel about a little offensive warfare? The lawyer's grin was predatory. I thought you'd never ask. As they began planning, I realized something had shifted. I'd spent my whole life trying to earn my parents' love, accepting their criticism, believing I was never quite good enough. But watching them systematically try to destroy me had finally opened my eyes. They didn't love me. They never had. I was just a possession that had decreased in value, and now they were trying to write me off completely. But I wasn't alone. This Barefoot Billionaire and his team were standing with me, ready to fight. And maybe, just maybe, we could win. 3 days into my new life in James's guest house, the private investigator he'd hired arrived with a thick folder that would change everything. David Kim was a former FBI agent who specialized in financial crimes, and the look on his face told me he'd found something significant. Ms. Morrison, he began, then paused. Actually, do you know your sister's fiancé well? Harrison Blackwell III? We've met at family functions. Typical trust fund baby. Why? David spread several documents across the coffee table. Because Harrison Blackwell III is already married. Has been for 3 years to a woman named Claire Ashford. They live separately to keep it quiet, but it's all here in the records. I stared at the marriage certificate, the mortgage documents showing a shared property in Vermont. But Madison's pregnant with his child. They're planning a huge wedding next spring. Which brings us to the interesting part, David continued. Your sister has been withdrawing large sums from Harrison's personal accounts. Nearly $100,000 in the last 2 months. When I looked deeper, I found communications suggesting she's blackmailing him with the pregnancy. James leaned forward. She's threatening to tell his wife? Worse. She's threatening to go public, destroy the Blackwell family reputation. And here's the kicker, your parents know. I found emails between your father and Harrison's father discussing the situation and how to contain it. I felt sick. So they threw me out for dating someone formerly homeless while protecting Madison's blackmail scheme? It gets worse, David said, pulling out more papers. Your father has been embezzling from his clients for years. Small amounts from many accounts, but it adds up to millions. And your mother? She's been having an affair with your father's business partner, Mitchell Crawford, for at least 18 months. The room spun. My perfect family, the one I'd never been good enough for, was built on lies and crimes. How did you find all this? Your father is meticulous about documentation, but he's arrogant. He never thought anyone would look. The forensic accountant on James's team found the embezzlement trail in hours. David pulled out his phone. And as for your mother's affair, well, she wasn't as discreet as she thought. The Ritz-Carlton downtown has excellent security cameras. James had been quiet throughout the revelations, but now he spoke. The question is what we do with this information. We could go to the authorities immediately, but they're still my parents, I finished, feeling torn. My phone rang. Aunt Catherine's name appeared on the screen. My mother's estranged sister, whom I hadn't spoken to in years. Brooke, honey, I heard what happened. I'm so sorry. Her voice was warm but sad. I've been watching the social media posts. It's like watching history repeat itself. What do you mean? Can we meet? There are things about our family you need to know. Things that might help you understand why they're doing this to you. An hour later, Aunt Catherine sat across from me in a discreet cafe downtown. She looked like an older, softer version of my mother, but where Diana Morrison was all sharp edges and cold perfection, Catherine radiated warmth. 23 years ago, your grandmother did the same thing to me. She began without preamble. Cast me out for marrying beneath the family standards. Robert was a carpenter, you see. Skilled, successful, but not the lawyer or doctor she'd chosen for me. Mom told me you left the family to join a cult, I said, realizing how naive I'd been. Catherine laughed bitterly. Of course she did. No, I was excommunicated for choosing love over status. Your grandmother destroyed my reputation, had me fired from my job, turned the entire family against me. Your mother watched it all happen and learned well. She pulled out a leather journal, its pages yellowed with age. This was your great-grandmother's. I saved it when they threw me out. Read it when you have time. You'll see this pattern goes back generations. The Morrison family doesn't just disown those who disappoint them, they systematically destroy them. But why? What's the point? Control. Power. Making examples so others fall in line. Your grandmother built the family fortune through questionable means, possibly illegal ones. Anyone who might expose the family's true nature has to be eliminated. Catherine reached across the table to squeeze my hand. I rebuilt my life, Brooke. Robert and I have been happily married for over 2 decades. But I always regretted not fighting back, not exposing them for what they really are. That afternoon, back at the guest house, I sat with the journal, reading entry after entry of calculated cruelty. My great-grandmother documented how she destroyed her own brother for trying to expose financial crimes. My grandmother had ruined her sister's life for marrying a Jewish man. Generation after generation of Morrisons maintaining their power through destruction of their own blood. A new message interrupted my reading. Unknown number, but the video attachment made my blood run cold. It showed me at the Christmas party, but the audio had been completely replaced. My voice, clearly AI-generated but convincing, was saying horrible things about my coworkers, about the families we helped. The fabrication was sophisticated enough to be believed. They're going to send this to every social services organization in the state, the message read. Unless you sign the attached document renouncing any claim to the Morrison family name or fortune and agreeing to leave the state permanently. You have 24 hours. James found me crying over the laptop. Without a word, he called David Kim. They've escalated. Digital warfare now. How fast can you trace the origin of this video? While his team worked, another blow fell. Every job application I'd submitted in the past 3 days had been rejected. Not just rejected, I was being blacklisted. A contact at one organization quietly informed me that someone claiming to be from the FBI had called, saying I was under investigation for theft and fraud. This ends now, James said grimly. They want to play dirty? Fine. Grace, prepare the evidence packages. One for the FBI's Financial Crimes Division, one for the State Attorney General, one for the IRS. David, I want everything ready for release to the media if needed. Wait, I said. There's something else we need to consider. Uncle Theodore has been feeding them information, but he was also recording at the party. What if we could turn him? James smiled slowly. You're thinking like a strategist now. What do you have in mind? Theodore always resented my father's success. He's been the lesser brother his whole life. What if we offered him a better deal? That evening, I made the call that would change everything. Uncle Theodore? It's Brooke. I know you've been reporting to my parents, and I know you have the video from Christmas Eve. I have a proposition for you. The silence stretched before he answered. I'm listening. My father has been stealing from his clients for years. When this comes out, and it will come out, everyone associated with him will go down too. You can be the whistleblower who exposed him, the hero of the story, or you can be his accomplice. Your choice. You're bluffing. Check your email. I just sent you a sample of what we have. Minutes later, he called back, his voice shaky. How long have you known? Does it matter? The question is, are you going to keep being his lapdog, or are you finally going to be the Morrison brother everyone remembers? It took him less than an hour to decide. That night, Uncle Theodore arrived at the guest house with a box of evidence that made even David Kim whistle in appreciation. Videos, documents, recordings of my parents discussing their crimes, their plans to destroy me, even their knowledge of Madison's blackmail scheme. They've been planning to throw you out for months, Theodore admitted. Ever since you started dating Marcus. The Christmas party was just the stage they chose. They needed witnesses for their version of events. I thought about all those months of tentative reconciliation, of my mother calling me more often, seeming interested in my life. It had all been preparation for this moment, gathering information to use against me. There's one more thing, Theodore said, pulling out a final envelope. Your trust fund. The one your grandfather left you. They told you it was lost in bad investments, right? I nodded, remembering my 21st birthday when they'd sadly informed me the money was gone. It wasn't. They've been using it as collateral for loans. The money is still there, locked up but technically yours. About $3 million. $3 million. Money that could have changed my life, helped so many families. Money they'd stolen while telling me I was selfish for choosing social work over wealth. We have everything we need, James said quietly. The question now is how you want to play this. We can destroy them quietly through legal channels, or we can make it public. Your choice, Brooke. I looked around the room at these people who'd become my army in just a few days. James, who understood abandonment and had chosen to help rather than become bitter. Grace, whose eyes gleamed with the prospect of justice. David, methodical and brilliant. Aunt Catherine, finally seeing a chance for the family's victims to fight back. Even Uncle Theodore, choosing courage over complicity at last. They wanted to destroy me publicly, I said slowly. They used social media, my workplace, my relationships. They didn't just want me gone, they wanted me humiliated. So? James prompted. So we return the favor. But first, we give them one chance to stop. One chance to leave me alone and let me rebuild my life in peace. Grace shook her head. They won't take it. People like this never do. I know, I said. but I need to offer it. I need to know I gave them the choice I never got. That night, I sent a single message to my parents. Stop now and your secrets stay secret. Continue attacking me and everything comes out. You have 24 hours to withdraw all complaints, restore my accounts, and leave me alone forever. This is your only warning. 23 hours and 59 minutes later, their response came in the form of a lawsuit. They were suing me for defamation, emotional distress, and theft of family property. The war was officially on, and this time, I was ready to fight. The lawsuit was just the opening salvo. Within days, my life became a nightmare of legal battles and personal attacks. Despite our evidence, my parents' connections ran deep. Judges who owed my father favors, police officers who golfed with him, city officials who'd benefited from my mother's charity events, they all seemed to align against me. Then came Uncle Theodore's message. They know I'm helping you. Your father wants to meet. Says he has a proposal that will end all of this. Tonight, 9 p.m., the old Wellington warehouse. Come alone or the deal is off. James immediately shook his head. It's a trap. That warehouse has been abandoned for years. No security cameras, no witnesses. But what if it's real? What if they're ready to negotiate? I was so tired, so worn down from the constant barrage of attacks. Brooke, Aunt Catherine said gently, they've had dozens of chances to stop this. Why would they negotiate now? But I was desperate. The stress was affecting my health. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. I'd lost 15 pounds in 2 weeks. I have to try. Maybe seeing me in person will remind them I'm their daughter. Against everyone's advice, I agreed to go. But James insisted on a compromise. His security team would follow at a distance, and I'd wear a panic button. The moment anything feels wrong, you press this and we come in, he said, handing me the small device. The Wellington warehouse sat in an industrial district that looked even more desolate at night. I parked outside, my hands shaking as I entered through the rusted door Theodore had specified. The space was vast and empty, dimly lit by a few remaining fluorescent bulbs that flickered ominously. Hello. My voice echoed in the darkness. Right on time, as always. My father stepped out of the shadows, but he wasn't alone. 3 large men flanked him, and none of them looked friendly. You've caused quite a bit of trouble, Brooke. Where's Mom? Where's Theodore? My hand moved toward the panic button in my pocket. Your mother couldn't stomach what needs to be done. And Theodore? Well, he's learned the price of betrayal. He nodded to one of the men, who held up a phone showing Theodore in a hospital bed, face swollen and bruised. You hurt him? Your own brother. He chose you over family. Just like you chose those street rats over us. My father's face was calm, terrifyingly so. But I'm giving you one last chance. Sign these papers. Admit you're mentally unstable, that you fabricated all accusations against us, and agree to voluntary commitment to a psychiatric facility. We'll make sure you're comfortable. Medicated, but comfortable. You want to lock me away? Like some Victorian madwoman? It's better than the alternative. The men stepped closer. I pressed the panic button, but nothing happened. No sirens, no rescue team bursting through the doors. My father smiled coldly. Did you really think we didn't know about Morrison's security team? We've been jamming all signals in a 3-block radius. Real terror set in as the men advanced. I tried to run, but they were faster. One grabbed my arm, twisting it behind my back. Another produced a syringe. This is just a sedative, my father said clinically. When you wake up, you'll be safe in a facility where they can help you with your delusions. In a few months, when you're properly medicated and compliant, we'll revisit our relationship. I struggled, screaming, but the warehouse swallowed the sound. The needle came closer, and I knew with horrible clarity that if they injected me, I'd disappear into a system my parents controlled. No one would believe the crazy woman claiming her wealthy family tried to destroy her. Then the lights went out completely. In the darkness, I heard efficient violence, grunts, thuds, bodies hitting concrete. Emergency flashlights blazed to life, revealing James's security team systematically taking down my father's hired thugs. James himself stood in the doorway, and for the first time since I'd met him, He looked truly dangerous. The signal jammer was clever, he said conversationally, walking toward my father. But did you really think I'd send her in here with only electronic protection? He pulled me behind him. Brooke, are you hurt? No, I was shaking so hard I could barely speak. My father straightened his tie, trying to salvage his dignity. You can't prove anything. My word against hers, and who's going to believe? Everyone, James interrupted, pointing to the industrial lights where tiny cameras were mounted. My team installed those yesterday. We have everything. The admission about Theodore, the attempted kidnapping, the plan to forcibly commit your daughter. All recorded in crystal clear high definition. The police sirens were real this time, growing louder. My father's face went white. You set me up. You used my own daughter as bait. No, I said, finding my voice. You set yourself up. I begged you to stop. All you had to do was leave me alone. As the police led my father away in handcuffs, he turned back once. You're no daughter of mine, he spat. I know, I replied quietly. I never was. The aftermath was chaos. My mother, faced with her husband's arrest and the investigation into their finances, fled to their house in the Cayman Islands. Madison's carefully constructed world crumbled when Harrison's wife filed for divorce and exposed the blackmail scheme. The scandal made headlines, Morrison financial empire built on fraud and fear. But even with my father in jail awaiting trial, I couldn't shake the trauma. The attempted abduction had broken something in me. I moved through the days like a ghost, unable to eat, sleep, or feel safe even in James's heavily secured guest house. The panic attacks came in waves, leaving me gasping and shaking. Then came the morning sickness. No, I whispered, staring at the positive pregnancy test. Not now. Not like this. I was pregnant with Marcus's child. Marcus, who'd walked away when things got dangerous. Marcus, who I couldn't blame for choosing his sobriety over my chaos. But now I was alone, traumatized, and carrying a baby into this disaster of a life. I sat on the bathroom floor, sobbing until I had no tears left. Everything felt hopeless. My family had tried to destroy me, and they'd nearly succeeded. Even locked up, my father's influence reached far. Former colleagues still wouldn't speak to me. Job applications disappeared into the void. The family name that had once opened doors now slammed them in my face. Brooke. James knocked gently. Grace is here with updates on the case. Can you come out? I can't do this anymore, I said through the door. They won. Even from prison, they won. Open the door, please. When I did, his expression was so full of concern it nearly broke me again. I wordlessly handed him the pregnancy test. He studied it, then me, then did something unexpected. He smiled. Congratulations, he said simply. That baby is going to have one hell of a strong mother. I'm not strong. I'm falling apart. You're still standing. After everything they threw at you, you're still here. That's not falling apart, that's surviving. He guided me to the living room where Grace and Aunt Catherine waited. And you're not doing it alone. Grace's updates were actually positive. The FBI had frozen all Morrison family assets. The embezzlement evidence was solid. My father faced decades in prison. But more importantly, she'd found a loophole in my trust fund documentation that would free up my inheritance within weeks. $3 million, Grace said. Enough to start over, to build something new. But I don't even know what I want to build, I admitted. Aunt Catherine took my hands. You have time to figure it out. And you have something your parents never had. People who care about you without conditions. That night, I finally called Marcus. He answered on the first ring. Brooke, are you okay? I saw the news about your father. I'm pregnant, I said without preamble. Silence stretched between us before he spoke. I'm so sorry I left. I was a coward. I told myself I was protecting my sobriety, but really I was just scared. I don't blame you. They threatened everything you'd worked for. But you needed me, and I wasn't there. Can we talk? In person? I looked around the guest house, at the people who'd become my chosen family. James, working on his laptop, but keeping a protective eye on me. Aunt Catherine, knitting what looked suspiciously like a baby blanket. Grace, fierce and loyal, planning our next legal move. Yes, I said to Marcus. We can talk. Maybe I was broken. Maybe I'd never fully trust anyone again. But I was still here, still breathing, still fighting. And now I had someone else to fight for. The tiny life growing inside me who deserved better than the toxic legacy of the Morrison family. The war with my parents wasn't over. My mother was still out there, Madison was posting venomous messages daily, and their society friends continued their whisper campaign against me. But for the first time since Christmas Eve, I felt something other than despair. I felt hope. The turning point came 3 weeks after my father's arrest, when James assembled what he called our War Council in his main house's conference room. The walls were covered with documents, timelines, and connection maps that looked like something from a crime thriller. Your mother just made a mistake, David Kim announced, pulling up financial records on the main screen. She accessed the Cayman accounts from Miami. We have her location. More importantly, Grace added, she transferred money to Madison to fund a smear campaign. That makes her an active participant in ongoing harassment while under investigation. We can freeze those accounts now. James looked at me. It's time to go public. Really public. Not just legal channels, but the court of public opinion. I hesitated. Despite everything, some part of me still recoiled at the idea of total exposure. Then my phone buzzed with another notification. Madison had posted ultrasound photos claiming I'd threatened the life of her unborn child and started a GoFundMe for protection from my deranged sister. Do it, I said. All of it. The media strategy was brilliant. Instead of a standard press conference, we organized a charity event for families affected by financial fraud. I would tell my story, but in the context of helping others who'd been similarly betrayed by those they trusted. The morning of the event, Marcus sat beside me at the guest house kitchen table. He'd been coming by daily since our reconciliation, working to rebuild trust. Are you sure about this? He asked, holding my hand. They tried to bury me, I said. They need to see I'm still standing. The ballroom at the Fairmont was packed. James had leveraged his connections to ensure media coverage, but what surprised me was the number of regular people who showed up. As I took the podium, I saw faces full of understanding, others who'd been cast out, betrayed, broken by family. My name is Brooke Morrison, I began, my voice steady despite my racing heart. Until 6 weeks ago, I thought I knew who I was. Then, on Christmas Eve, my parents threw me out of their home for dating someone they deemed beneath our family's status. What followed was a systematic campaign to destroy not just my reputation, but my sanity, my safety, and my future. I told them everything. The embezzlement, the affairs, the attempted kidnapping. But more than that, I told them about the generations of Morrisons who'd done this before, the pattern of abuse disguised as maintaining standards. As I spoke, I watched the crowd's expression shift from sympathy to outrage. But I'm not here as a victim, I continued. I'm here because silence enables abuse. Wealth and connection should not shield predators, even when those predators share your DNA. Especially then. When I finished, the room erupted in applause. But the real victory came in what followed. One by one, people approached the microphone to share their own stories. A woman whose banker father had stolen her identity. A man whose mother had him institutionalized for being gay. Story after story of family betrayal and survival. The hashtag no blood no loyalty started trending within hours. Major news outlets picked up the story. But most importantly, the FBI announced they were expanding their investigation based on new witnesses coming forward. Apparently, my father had been stealing from clients for longer than we'd known, and victims were finally feeling safe enough to speak up. That evening, we gathered at James's house to watch the coverage. Every channel led with the story, and the narrative had completely flipped. No longer was I the ungrateful daughter who'd abandoned family values. Now the truth was clear. I was the whistleblower who'd exposed a generational criminal enterprise. Morrison financial stocks just hit rock bottom, David reported, scrolling through his tablet. Trading suspended pending investigation. Your mother's Cayman accounts are frozen. And, he grinned, Harrison Blackwell's wife just filed charges against Madison for extortion. My phone rang. Unknown number, but I recognized Madison's voice immediately. You destroyed everything, she screamed. Mom's having a breakdown. The lawyers say I could go to prison. How could you do this to your own family? Madison, I said calmly, you posted edited videos to make me look insane. You helped plan my abduction. You tried to have me committed against my will. You did this to yourself. I'm pregnant. You can't let them arrest a pregnant woman. Funny how pregnancy didn't stop you from trying to destroy a pregnant woman, I replied, my hand unconsciously moving to my own still flat stomach. Goodbye, Madison. The next call was from my mother, presumably from whatever luxury hotel she was hiding in. Her voice was slurred, whether from alcohol or medication, I couldn't tell. I gave you everything, she said. The best schools, the best opportunities, and you threw it all away for what? To play savior to people who don't matter. They matter to me, I said. More than maintaining a facade ever did. Your father is facing 20 years. 20 years, Brooke. Is that what you wanted? What I wanted was a family that loved me for who I am, not who they demanded I become. What I wanted was parents who didn't try to lock me in a psychiatric facility for embarrassing them. But we don't always get what we want, do we, Mom? She hung up without another word. The legal victories came quickly after that. The trust fund was released, all $3 million of it. My father pled guilty to avoid a longer sentence, getting 12 years with possibility of parole in 8. The investigation revealed he'd stolen over $15 million throughout his career. My mother, stripped of her social standing and facing charges of her own, fled the country rather than face trial. Madison's story ended with a whimper rather than a bang. Harrison's wife took her for everything in both the divorce and the extortion case. The pregnancy she'd used as a weapon turned out to be fake, another lie in her arsenal. Last I heard, she was living in a studio apartment in New Jersey, working at a call center. Uncle Theodore recovered physically but never quite mentally. The guilt of his initial betrayal and his brother's retaliation broke something in him. He testified against my father, then disappeared into witness protection. But the real victory wasn't in their downfall. It was in what rose from the ashes. With my inheritance and James's guidance, I established the Phoenix Foundation, offering legal and financial assistance to people escaping abusive families. Within 6 months, we'd helped dozens of people in situations like mine. You did it, James said one evening as we reviewed the foundation's progress. You took the worst thing that ever happened to you and turned it into hope for others. We did it, I corrected. I couldn't have survived without you, without all of you. Marcus and I had been slowly rebuilding, attending counseling together, preparing for parenthood while healing from trauma. It wasn't easy. Trust, once broken, is hard to repair. But we were trying, and that was enough for now. The baby kicked for the first time during one of our foundation events. I was mid-speech when I felt the flutter, and I must have paused because Marcus was beside me instantly. You okay? He whispered. The baby, I said, wonder in my voice. I felt the baby. He placed his hand on my growing bump, and in that moment, surrounded by others who'd survived family betrayal and found new beginnings, I realized I'd won something more valuable than any legal victory. I'd won my freedom, my authenticity, my right to build a family based on love, not legacy. The Morrison name, once a golden ticket, was now synonymous with scandal and crime. But Brooke Morrison, social worker, survivor, and soon-to-be mother, that name meant something different. It meant hope. It meant fighting back. It meant that sometimes, the family that throws you away is really setting you free to find the family you were meant to have all along. 1 year later, I stood in the same ballroom where I'd first told my story publicly, but everything had changed. The Phoenix Foundation's first annual gala was sold out, raising money to help more families escape abuse. I wore a simple black dress that accommodated my post-pregnancy figure, my daughter sleeping peacefully in Marcus's arms at our table. Ladies and gentlemen, James said from the podium, please welcome the woman who turned pain into purpose, our founder and director, Brooke Morrison. The applause was warm, genuine. As I walked to the stage, I caught sight of familiar faces in the crowd. Aunt Catherine, now on our board of directors. Grace Chin, who'd become our pro bono legal coordinator. David Kim, heading our investigative unit. Even some of the families from the shelter where I used to work, dressed in their finest, here to support the woman who'd never stopped fighting for them. A year ago, I lost everything I began. My family, my home, my identity as I knew it. I stood in the snow on Christmas Eve with nothing but garbage bags full of my belongings, convinced my life was over. I paused, looking at Marcus and our daughter, Luna. I was wrong. That wasn't the end. It was the beginning. I told them about the Phoenix Foundation's work. 47 people successfully extracted from abusive family situations. $300,000 in emergency funds distributed. 12 pro bono lawyers now in our network. Safe houses in 3 cities. A 24-hour helpline staffed by survivors who understood. But the most important thing we offer isn't money or legal help, I continued. It's validation. It's someone saying, I believe you. Your pain is real. You deserve better. Because when your own family tells you you're worthless, sometimes that's all you need to hear to keep going. The surprise guest speaker was someone I hadn't expected to see again. Marcus had arranged it without telling me. Dr. Sarah Chin, no relation to Grace, walked onto the stage. She'd been my supervisor at the shelter, the one who'd been forced to suspend me when my parents made their accusations. I failed Brooke when she needed support most, Dr. Chin said. I let fear of losing funding override my knowledge of her character. But Brooke's courage in speaking truth to power inspired me to do the same. Our shelter has cut ties with all donors who use their wealth to silence abuse. We've lost money, but we've gained integrity. After the speeches, as people mingled and wrote checks, a young woman approached me tentatively. She couldn't have been more than 19, her designer dress at odds with the fear in her eyes. Ms. Morrison? I'm Emma Fitzgerald. My family, they're like yours were. I'm gay, and they've threatened to have me committed if I don't agree to conversion therapy. I don't know what to do. I took her hands in mine. You survive. You get out. And we help you do both. Grace. I called to our legal coordinator. We have a new client. As Grace led Emma away to safety, James appeared at my elbow. You know your mother's been spotted in Brazil? I know. She sent a letter through her lawyer. Wants to reconcile, says she's found religion and realizes she was wrong. And I hope she has. I hope she finds peace. But she'll have to find it without me. I touched the small scar on my arm from the warehouse struggle. Some bridges, once burned, don't get rebuilt. They just light the way forward. The evening was winding down when Marcus found me on the balcony, Luna fussing in his arms. I took our daughter, feeling her settle against me, and marveled again at this life I'd created from the ashes of the old one. Any regrets? Marcus asked, wrapping his arms around us both. No, I said honestly. Not even one. My phone buzzed with a notification. An article about the gala was already online, but it was the comment section that caught my eye. Dozens of people sharing their own stories, finding courage in mine. The movement we'd started was bigger than just the Phoenix Foundation now. It was a revolution of truth-telling, of refusing to be silenced by blood or money or threats. Oh, I forgot to tell you, Marcus said. That Barefoot Billionaire of yours left something for Luna. I laughed. James had officially become Luna's godfather, spoiling her ridiculously while teaching me the business skills to keep the foundation sustainable. What now? Another trust fund. Actually, just a note. He handed me an envelope. Inside, James's handwriting was characteristically direct. For Luna, may you always know your worth has nothing to do with your name or your net worth. May you be brave enough to stand in the snow barefoot if that's what it takes to find your truth. And may you always remember that the best families are the ones we choose. Love, Uncle James. I wiped away tears, thinking about the family we'd built. Not bound by blood, but by choice, trauma transformed into triumph. Luna would grow up surrounded by people who'd fought for their right to exist authentically. She'd never have to earn love by being someone she wasn't. Mama? A small voice from the doorway made us turn. One of the shelter kids I used to work with stood there, now housed and thriving. Miss Catherine says to tell you the final count. We raised $2 million tonight. $2 million. Enough to open safe houses in 10 more cities. Enough to help hundreds more escape. Enough to prove that my parents' money, built on lies and theft, could be transformed into something healing. As we drove home, to our modest apartment, not a mansion, I thought about that night in the snow. How I'd stood there believing I'd lost everything, only to discover I'd been freed to find everything that really mattered. My parents had thrown me out on Christmas Eve, but in doing so, they'd given me the greatest gift, the chance to build a life based on love, not fear. Luna stirred in her car seat, and I reached back to touch her tiny hand. You're going to know you're loved, I whispered. Every single day, no matter what. That's my promise. The Morrison family legacy of destruction had ended with me. In its place, the Phoenix Foundation would build a legacy of resurrection, of families forged in choice rather than chance, of love that didn't come with price tags or conditions. My parents had thrown me out on Christmas Eve. A barefoot billionaire had changed everything. But in the end, I'd saved myself. And that, I realized as we pulled into our parking spot, Marcus humming softly to our daughter, that was the greatest plot twist of all. Thank you for joining me on this journey from destruction to redemption. If you've ever felt rejected by those who should love you most, remember that blood doesn't define family, love does. What's your story of chosen family? Have you ever had to walk away from toxic relationships to find your truth? Share your experiences in the comments below. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. If this story touched your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more stories of triumph over adversity. Share this video with someone who needs to remember they're not alone in their struggle. Together, we're building a community where survival stories become success stories. Until next time, remember, sometimes the family that throws you away is really setting you free to find the family you were meant to have all along. You are worthy of love, exactly as you are. Never let anyone, not even family, convince you otherwise.